Ukraine is absolutely thrilled after a $60 billion aid bill was passed in the U.S. lower house for Ukraine's ongoing war against Russia. How will this aid Ukraine's fate on the front line? Will this spark Ukraine's counter-offensive 2.0? And will this counter-offensive be any different than the previous one? For more on this, we're being joined by Mr. Dmitry Babich, who's joining us from Moscow. He's a political analyst at Sputnik International. Sir, thank you so much for joining in and sharing and, taking all these questions from us. I want to just get to it immediately. How will the new weapons impact Russia's current advancements?
The weapons will not arrive immediately. Right now, just passed this law which allows $60 billion worth be sent to Ukraine. A lot of this money will be spent on compensating the American defense industries which already produced weapons for Ukraine, which have already been used during the last year, during this year. And then also this law will have to pass the Senate, and it will have to be signed by President Biden. There is no doubt that Biden will sign it because Biden is a militaristic president, but don't expect the immediate impact on the front line. As for the perspective, I would remind you that in 2022 and 2023, the United States gave several times more, the amount of money which was several times bigger than the one given now.
Yes.
And somehow it didn't produce the desired result. You remember that last year this huge offensive of the Ukrainian army, touted by the Western media, failed miserably. And it was a tragedy because just so many people died, especially on the Ukrainian side, on the Russian side also. So if you ask my opinion, I think this war should end as soon as possible. Sending weapons to the zone of conflict is immoral for any third party. We all remember it from many previous civil wars. The war between Russia and Ukraine reminds me in many ways of the wars between India and Pakistan. And just like with the case of Pakistan, the United States is supporting the weaker side, not because the United States considers Ukraine or Pakistan the justified side, not because they have special sympathy, but just according to the principle of Machiavelli, that intriguing politician of the 16th century. If you want to control a certain area and you have a big party and a small party having a war there, support the small party, because then you will have them in a stalemate for a long time and you can control both of them. If you remain neutral or if you support the bigger party will win and you will have a bigger adversary. So this is the logic that the United States is following in the former Soviet Union. It always supports the former Soviet republics against Russia, even if this is about war.
Yes. I wanted to just come in here. You said the weapons will not come towards Ukraine immediately. That was essentially what I also wanted to get your thoughts on. If you were to put it on a timeline, of course, there is a process that has to go to the Senate. Now, everyone understands it will not face too much resistance there. And, of course, Biden is waiting to sign it into a law. Even after that, by when can one expect the next tranche of weapons to reach Ukraine, which it will then finally reach the front line for the Ukrainian soldiers?
It will take several months at least. And it's a big question which weapons will be sent, because right now there is a feeling in the United States that the country is kind of exhausted. People in the United States are tired of this war in Ukraine, which I think is very dangerous. The war in Ukraine is very dangerous, not only for Russia, not only for Ukraine itself, but also for the whole world, because it can escalate. And then even the United States will not be safe. There are talks, different talks on what kind of weapons will be sent. The Americans keep mentioning F-16 fighter jets. Well, that can be very dangerous because F-16 fighter jets can strike Moscow or other big cities inside Russia. We know that the current Ukrainian regime is adventurous. They already attacked a lot of oil refineries, a lot of civilian objects in Russia by drones, despite opposition from the United States. Again, we have it just like with Pakistan. Formally, the United States is against Pakistani terrorism. Formally, the United States does not encourage Zelensky to strike the Russian oil refineries. But in reality, Zelensky strikes Russian oil refineries, and the United States doesn't punish him for that. So if Zelensky gets F-16 fighter jets, the situation will get a lot more dangerous, because Russia will have to respond. But you are right, it will take at least a few months before this batch of money is turned into weapons. I think the European support for the Ukrainian regime is even more dangerous because the Europeans seem to have more appetite for war. The propaganda in the European Union is much stronger in favor of this war than in the United States. So I'm more concerned about money and weapons coming from countries like Denmark, which already said it would send fighter jets to Ukraine. There is a lot of money and weapons coming from Germany. And France is behaving adventurously. You know, Mr. Macron, the president, he said that France was ready even to send troops there, you know, NATO troops.
But of course, we saw a lot of European leaders coming in the fray at that point and saying that, no, we are not going to be sending our troops in. Poland came out, Germany came out to say that, US said that we're not sending our soldiers in. So clearly they don't want a NATO versus Russia scenario, but it is clear that US is willing to continue with the funding for the weapons and, of course, the weapons that Ukraine needs at the moment. I just want to take it further from there. Do you feel, even if it is going to take a few more months for those weapons to reach the front lines for the Ukrainian soldiers, do you feel Russia is going to alter its game plan in that period of time? Because we also know that in a matter of another few months, America is going to go to polls. And if there is a Republican government which comes in at Washington, we could see an automatic turn of events at the front lines between Russia and Ukraine as well. Do you feel Russia is going to alter its game plan in these next few months before the weapons reach?
Well, you know, in modern war, plans are altered all the time.
Yes.
This is what President Eisenhower of the United States said very wisely back in the 50s, that the problem with the war is that you can't plan anything. You make plans and then you have to change them the next hour because the situation is different. So I'm sure Russia will adapt its plans to new realities. Right now, the plan is for Russia to advance slowly, step by step, not losing, not having unnecessary casualties, unnecessary losses. Little by little, we're gaining ground in the areas of Ukraine which are Russian-speaking, where Russians live, not ethnic Ukrainians. And even if the Ukrainian government gets these weapons, the problem is that the West and the Ukrainian government, they don't have a realistic plan. I mean, when they say we want to take Crimea back, well, Crimea, what is Crimea? That is a peninsula populated by 2.5 million Russians who are now Russian citizens. They speak Russian as well as I do. They lived in the same country for all of their lives. They watch Russian television. They are Russian. So is Russia going to give up Crimea even if Ukrainians get more weapons? No. It's like expecting India to cede more territory to Pakistan because Pakistan gets more weapons. First, India is several times stronger than Pakistan. In the same way, Russia is several times stronger than Ukraine. Population-wise, we're 4 times stronger. In terms of GDP, we're 14 times stronger. And of course, the Ukrainian regime wouldn't have been able to resist if it didn't get all of this massive aid from the West. So, in fact, it is already a proxy war between NATO and Russia, not between Ukraine and Russia. And in that war, you are right, NATO pretends not to participate. They say we don't send our men to the battlefront. Well, first, there are many people from NATO countries, so-called volunteers, in fact, professional military, who are participating in this war. They just don't have the NATO insignia on them. And there are thousands of instructors who have been working there even before Putin gave his order for Russian troops to enter Ukraine. Before, as you know, the war had continued for 8 years. And all of these 8 years, thousands of American, British instructors instructors trained Ukrainian soldiers.
Yes.
That's why Ukrainian army turned out so resilient when the Russian army moved in 2022. So all of this is very dangerous. I think the world should take notice of that and stop this madness. Because there's aims which are set by the West before the Ukrainian government, they're unfulfillable. Russia will not give up Crimea, And Russia, of course, has destructive weapons, not necessarily nuclear ones, which it can use to protect its citizens, just like any other country would. If Punjab would be occupied by Pakistan 100%, do you think India would stop at using destructive weapons to protect its citizens? No. In the same way with Russia and Crimea.
All right. Well, Punjab always has been and will remain integral part or inalienable part of India. And of course, as far as the Russia-Ukraine conflict is concerned, we are going to be tracking that closely right here at WION. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights. That was Mr. Dmitry Babich joining us from Moscow, political analyst at Sputnik International. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights.
Thank you. Bye-bye.